The way we make music has changed so much, and over the past 10 or so years, pop and hip hop have really stayed ahead of the curve and kind of ridden that wave of innovation that's been going on in terms of how we produce and create music. But rock and metal music really is still made in the exact same way they were years ago, which is to go to a studio and hire out a producer to record your instruments for you. So why is rock music still in the past? Well, in my opinion, there are two main reasons. The first one is that rock is kind of all about nostalgia, or at least these days it seems to be all about doing things the way we used to, and it's all about, you know, vintage gear and all that stuff. But also, rock music is quite a different beast to be handling. Like, I have nothing against programming, I do it myself. I have nothing against hip-hop, I make hip-hop myself. But there is definitely a very different approach to recording the audio of a distorted guitar versus programming in beats on a laptop, and it's kind of MIDI like lends itself to the digital age, whereas guitar has kind of been trying to find its place in there but hasn't really found it yet. So today I'm going to talk to you about my approach as a rock producer who isn't really interested in preserving any of the waves of the past, as someone who wants to ride the wave and kind of see where we can go next with guitars and guitar-driven music. So I'm going to give you everything I can right now as far as what I've learned with that kind of mindset as a rock producer. I've broken this video into 6 steps. When I look back on the journey for me of going from a place where I don't really feel like I know what I'm doing to going to a place where I feel confident in producing any kind of sound pretty much. These 6 steps working in tandem are, for me, the key to propelling you forward as a producer and mixing engineer and getting you to the place where you really understand sound and you feel confident handling it and doing whatever needs doing with it on any given project. So let's jump into it. Step 1 is so important. All these steps are important, but step 1, not enough people do this and it's really sad. Use what you have. Musicians and producers can be some of the least resourceful people in the world. And I love gear, I love having new stuff, I get it. But remember, you can't buy good sounds. You could give a bad producer the most expensive gear in the world and they would not make it sound good. And you could give a great producer the cheapest gear in the world and they would make it sound great. So if you don't have a very good bass guitar, but you need to get a certain bass guitar sound, don't assume you need to buy the gear that everyone else uses to get that sound. Figure out all of the possibilities with what you have because you probably haven't explored all of them. When I barely had any gear or money, I frequently found myself recording bass through a bass amp and then running that into a guitar amp because I was going for a certain kind of sound and I just didn't have enough gear to load up the bass amp I wanted and have the sound I wanted, so I had to experiment and I just ended up where there was a certain bass amp plugin and a certain guitar amp plugin that working together for some reason made the sound I wanted. And even though now I have way more tools at my disposal, I still often find myself doing super unconventional things that you wouldn't think to do usually as a producer unless you had been in that position where you can kind of take your weakness of not having a ton of stuff to use and turn that into your superpower of having a super creative mindset as far as thinking outside the box and understanding all the different ways that you could use something even if you're using it wrong. Kind of like auto-tune. That's one of the recent ingenious things where it was made to be subtle and not noticeable, but now people put it all over songs to make it noticeable. Like, people want the sound of auto-tune being used wrong, and that's basically a mistake. So yeah, figure out how you can do that yourself with what you have. And rather than seeing your gear as something that limits how great your work can be, try to see those limits as opportunities to do something new that you wouldn't be pushed to do if you didn't have those limits. Step 2 is never get comfortable. Experiment with new sounds all the time, even sounds you never intend to use. A recent song I made that's one of my favorite songs I've ever done, the idea for it came from, I heard my girlfriend listening to Blackpink, this K-pop band, and there was this kind of distorted breath sound in there that I thought was really cool, so I was like, well, I want to know how to make that sound, just for fun and to kind of grow as a producer. And I kind of got inspired after I got that sound and ended up using this brass sound in a metal track, which not only is really innovative, but I also wouldn't have thought to do it and wouldn't have created this awesome track if I hadn't just been pushing myself as a producer. I kind of see it as a discipline, like as a guitarist, for example, you practice your instrument to make sure that you are still familiar with it and that you're the best you can be. As a producer, your instrument is sound and you need to have all the tools you can to know what you're doing with sound and have all the experience you can. I do something every week that I call a creative push, where every Saturday I'll challenge myself with something. I might be tired of the vocal production I've been using and so I'll try and create something that sounds better for vocals, or I might be into a certain bass tone that I want to achieve, or I might be feeling like I want to get my masters louder. There's always something you can do, so if that sounds like something that would be good for you, I recommend it. It's made me a way better producer to do creative pushes every week. Step 3 may be obvious, but use the internet. Don't forget how much the internet can give you. There is so much information on there, and especially if you're just starting out, watch everything you can on YouTube, Google everything you can think of that you don't yet know about. Also remember to use your ears, we'll get to that. Don't get too kind of up in your head about, oh, 300 Hz is bad and 3K is bad, but it's good to learn as much as you can. Just, don't take it for granted that we have all this info out there, because even 10 years ago when I was kind of starting out with this, it was nowhere near like what it is now, and it was a lot harder to figure out what you're doing. Step 4 is to use reference tracks. This is something I heard about very early on in my career as a producer, and I didn't start doing it for a long time, and until I started doing it, my stuff didn't sound very good. And I couldn't figure out why, I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And like I was saying, don't just use your eyes, don't say, oh, cut at 3K. Use your ears, and this is where reference tracks help, because you might know all the right tricks to be doing to make a guitar sound good, but it depends on the recording you've got. And if you want a certain sound from a System of a Down track, the best thing you can do, rather than just going in blind, is keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and just figuring out whatever you can do to get closer to that sound. All you need to do is just try and get 1% closer every move that you make, and then even if it takes you 100 moves, you'll get something close, whoever you are. Step 5 is don't just use monitors. I don't even have monitors anymore, which is probably, people will tell me that's the wrong thing to do. I used to use them, and I would listen to my whole mix on the monitors, and then it would sound amazing on those, and it would not sound how I wanted it to on anything else. So now, the reason I don't have monitors is because I'll use these, but then whenever I've got a mix I'm kind of happy with, I'll take it to the car. I'll listen on a Bluetooth speaker. I'll listen through my laptop speakers, I'll listen through my phone, and I'll just keep doing that, keep tweaking things, keep going through every single speaker I can think of that I can listen through until it sounds how I want it to through everything. And I feel like no one really talks about this, but why would you just listen through monitors when you could listen through every speaker you've got? You really want to make sure you've got a good idea of how your mix sounds overall, rather than just to you in your room, because you don't know how someone's going to be listening to it. Step 6 is just make a ton of music, and commit yourself to making every production better than the last. I made that promise to myself a few years ago that anytime I make a song, I won't stop until it sounds like the best thing I've ever made, and I always do. And I recommend it because it will push you every single time you record, and that is going to skyrocket your abilities. Not only will it massively improve your abilities to create a ton of music, but it will also be super fulfilling, because there's few things more fulfilling as an artist than getting all your ideas out and just exploring all the places you want to explore. So those are my 6 steps. Those are the things that have taken me from a place where I don't feel confident to where I do feel confident as a producer. So I hope that helps you guys, and if there's anything else you think I missed, let me know, and if there's anything else you want to know, let me know. Thank you for watching.